sports note for Friday, May 3rd. This is actually one that I've had in the can for a couple of days, and just things came up. I never actually got a chance to record it for a couple of days, and then when I did, I lost it twice. So that's why I'm actually doing it again this morning. I was at the Cavs playoff game on Tuesday night. Just life gets in the way sometimes. But a week ago, yesterday, we had the first round of the NFL draft, and it's no secret that we actually saw a lot of history involved. We saw six quarterbacks taken off the board in the first 12. We didn't see the first defensive player taken until midway through the round. We actually we had a record tying number of wide receivers taken in the first round. Now, a lot of that is kind of taken with a little bit of grain of salt because a lot of the times when some of these records happen, the league hadn't fully expanded to the 32 that it is now. The latest defensive player was taken by the Los Angeles Rams at, I want to say it was 15. Um, it was actually the Rams at 19. I take that back. Or the Colts actually ended up taking one at 15, and then if you go back to 1967, that was the previous record. Seven wide receivers taken in the first round, the most since I want to say it was 2001. But we saw really no major surprises in the first four picks. Chicago goes Caleb Williams. The Washington Commanders go Jaden Daniels. New England goes Drake May. Arizona goes Marvin Harrison. And then that's where things started to topple a little bit because there was a lot of people who thought the Los Angeles Chargers would end up getting out of five. There was a lot of talk that the Minnesota Vikings would end up coming up to five to possibly get a quarterback, maybe J.J. McCarthy. But the Chargers ended up going Joe Alt, the offensive tackle out of Notre Dame, where a lot of people saw him going off the board at seven to the Tennessee Titans. The Giants, no surprise, ended up going Malik Neighbors at six. The Titans actually shifted focus a little bit and then went J.C. Latham, the offensive tackle from Alabama, at seven. And then the Atlanta Falcons decided to throw a wrench into everything for the second consecutive year. If you remember last year, the Falcons ended up taking Bijan Robinson eighth overall, which is the highest a running back's been taken in a number of years. And I've always been a firm proponent that unless he's an absolute game changer right out the chute, you don't take a running back in the first round ever. Um, to be able to take one in the top 10, and then Robinson, even though he was dramatically underutilized in Arthur Smith's offense, still ended up leading all NFL rookies with 975 yards. So for him to be that underutilized and nearly break 1,000 yards, he actually would have topped 12 or 1,300 had Arthur Smith used him properly. Arthur Smith gets canned, and then in comes Raheem Morris as head coach, and the Falcons go out and pick up Kirk Cousins in the off season. One of the biggest names to move on the free agent market. You probably had in I'm counting trades, free agency, everything. You definitely the Stephon Diggs thing was huge. The Derrick Henry thing was huge, and then you could easily put Kirk Cousins in the top three. Cousins coming off of a ruptured Achilles, where he missed where he missed most of last season, and the Falcons still were in a mathematical tie going into the final week of the regular season, where they could have conceivably won the NFC South. Ends up going to Tampa Bay for the third year in a row. They go out and they sign Kirk Cousins for 4 years, 180 million, 100 million guaranteed. Cousins is 35. He'll be 36 by the time the season starts, and that would actually mean that Cousins would be until 40 when that contract fully matures, assuming he doesn't retire. And then Atlanta goes out and kind of gets a security blanket, and they make a bit of a reach here, and they end up taking Michael Penix Jr., the stud quarterback out of Washington, with the eighth overall pick. Now, there was a lot of people who thought that Penix could be a first round pick. Could he end up going to the Raiders? There was talk that he might have gone in the back end of the first round, maybe high second. and then Denver kind of stuns everybody again and ends up taking Bo Nix at 12, but it was more of a necessity for them because Nix ended up being the best quarterback in the room by the time the first round ended there, considering Denver has absolutely nothing in the cupboard. But Penix throws easily the prettiest touch on any ball of any of the six quarterbacks taken in the first round, and that would be Nix, Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams. Is this class going to be as good as the 2008 class that ended up having Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, um, uh, Patrick Mahomes? Is it going to be? It's nothing's ever going to top the 1983 class that had Jim Kelly, Dan Marino, Bernie Kosar, on and on and on and on. But this could be this generation's version of that if some of these guys mature into the players that they're capable of. I've said time and time again. I think that Michael Penix could be one of the dark horses in this draft. I don't. He's got a lot of similarities to me with a guy like a Patrick Mahomes. He goes under the radar. He gets a lot of attention in his senior season, and then he's going to be the one that a lot of people were sleeping on. He's got the ability to do a lot of very good things. I don't think anyone's going to be as great as Patrick Mahomes in our lifetime, and that's going to include Tom Brady, because think about it, Patrick Mahomes is only 28 years old and he's already got three Super Bowls and he's playing the fourth. Are the Atlanta Falcons going to end up getting there? Probably not, but give them a couple of years and let's see what happens here, because now Atlanta's got a very good defense. They've done good things to kind of shore up their offensive line a little bit. They've got, it's very much like a Green Bay type situation where you have the proverbial Hall of Famer in place, because Cousins is a borderline Hall of Famer with some of the numbers that he's put up over his career. Even though he doesn't have the postseason success that some of those guys did. He's been to the playoffs multiple times. Favre and Aaron Rodgers only have one Super Bowl win each. Cousins doesn't have any. And then you actually end up drafting somebody behind him. And could this end up being a very similar situation where you had Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre? Favre moves on, Rodgers and ends up turning into a Hall of Famer. Rodgers kind of refuses to leave. They end up drafting Jordan Love. He sits for a couple of years, and then Jordan Love comes in and ends up taking the NFL by storm last year, getting the Packers into the playoffs, and were just a couple of minutes away from upsetting the 49ers, who ended up playing in the Super Bowl. So it's very, very interesting to see what they're going to do here with Penix. I think Penix is certainly more mobile, but he's got a little bit of injury history himself. He was originally at Indiana, and then ends up transferring. He ended up playing basically 6 seasons. He missed 1 year due to injury. He got an extra year of eligibility during the COVID year. And he made the most of it. He ended up being a Heisman finalist last year. He got Washington to the national championship game, where they were basically run off the field by Michigan. But he beat Bo Nix twice. He got Washington their first Pac-12 championship in a number of years. And him and Rome Odunze were one of the more entertaining quarterback and receiver combinations in all of college football last year. Odunze ends up going right behind Penix at number 9 to the Bears, so Odunze is going to be paired up with Caleb Williams, who was one of Penix's rivals there. So it all ends up coming back full circle. But what's it going to say that if Cousins plays well, kind of coming back off of his injury, then Atlanta's set. So they've actually got a guy who has the capability of winning divisions and getting into and winning playoff games there. And then you've actually got a very good caliber backup behind him who's going to end up taking the reins when either Cousins falters or if he has another injury setback. But if Cousins doesn't perform well out of the chute, if he regresses a little bit, if he if they have to shut him down for a little while, they're more than capable of getting somebody young and talented in there to lead that offense, which is a very good young offense, especially with a guy like Robinson as your feature back. So let me know what you guys think. Is this going to be a situation much like the Packers, or is this going to be something where what does it say if the guy driving the car should be handing the keys over to the guy in the passenger seat eventually, knowing that the guy in the passenger seat is end up going to be better in the long run for the team's future. Mike and I will be back with you guys on the Wise Guys tomorrow night. We have a couple of special guests. It will be episode 69. Yes, we are going there. There will be a ton of jokes along those lines, and I will be back with you a little later on, hopefully this weekend. There's a possibility I could be going to Game 7 of the Cavs. I certainly will be going to some sort of watch party. It's all a matter of where things are going to fall, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Take care.